Hello and very good morning and welcome back. This is the second part of this is the second stream that we are conducting here for our SP.NET Core Live project with CSAR. Hello. Cool. So I guess we are all set. So let's recap what we have done so far. So earlier we have discussed the architecture that we are going to follow. So the project that we are, if somebody is joining today the first time, so let me recap me a little bit about the project that we are building here. So basically we are trying to develop a SMS gateway. So this will be two project setups. So one will be a API endpoint and one will be the Android app. So we will expose some endpoint from our API. So after hitting that particular API, you will get SMS. So how this SMS is sent? So basically, we will be using a mobile Android device and the telephony native API. So whenever somebody is making a API call, we will send it to our server. Server will keep in rabbit mqq so that it can be like process it can be scaled horizontally, and after there, after putting in the database and doing the necessary check, the same request for the sending of email is sent to the Firebase. Basically from Firebase we will be using application push notification. So we, with the help of FCM, we will send a push notification to our Android device, and that particular device, after getting the push notification, will create a SMS using the native telephone API, and it will send it to the customer. So that is what we are trying to implement here. So earlier, like in the last stream, we have already discussed about the this particular architecture and what are the endpoint that we are going to create. So let me fire up my Visual Studio. So so here on the Visual Studio, we completed our project setup. So here we have a API project, then we have like four other projects. These are class library project, one for data access layer, one for entities, one is services, and another is util. So we have done the basic setup for all these projects, and here, so like we have some common DAO. In this common DAO, basically we have created the connection string and necessary method to like do the DB calls. And for, so initially we have identified our four basic entities. This is device, SMS, and user. So we have created the DAO for that, and we have inherited that DAO with the common DAO, so that we can get the connection string or the DB connection from there. So that was our DAO layer, and similarly we had the service layer. In the service layer, we are calling our respective DAO to make the DB calls. So from the service layer, we will make a call to our DAO. DAO will call the database. So here we have some VM so far in the entity. Basically, we are going to create our entity. So there will be device, SMS, and user, and we have some VM. So VM will be used for like request response formats, and then we have this util layer. Here we had created a helper class, so any utility function can go here. So that's all for this. And the main layer, this our controller. So we are using ASP.NET Core 6. So we have this program.cs. Here we have some service declaration. We also used Swagger generation so that we can like access our API endpoint in Swagger. And another thing, like we have created some endpoints. So this is device endpoint, and it is inheriting the app based controller. So we have created a controller which is inheriting the controller base. So any common logic we will need to do on the control level, we can do here in our base controller. So that's all set. Let me run it. so that we can see our Swagger documentation and what we have so far. Okay, so here we have this. We have devices. So on the device endpoint, we can get the user devices by hitting the device user ID. Then we have SMS, so we can get the SMS ID. We will create other endpoints and user for user profile and user login, right? So far we have created this and we have one view model which is this, right? Great. So these all things are here. So first of all, whenever we are planning our project, we talk about architecture, we talk about our control flow, or the yeah, control flow, how the user will interact our system. And in this particular conversation, basically we try to find the entities which is involving in this particular project. So let's do that, and I will explain how we can identify our um, entities. So the thing that we have discussed, like here we will have a user, okay, which will make a API request, and this API request will be to sending a SMS, right? So let me open Notepad and we will discuss how we are identifying. So we should have a user which will be interacting to our application. So we are going to call it user itself, okay. So we will have a user. Oh, what happens? Okay, here. So we are going to call it user only. So entities, what are they? First is user. User will interact to our system, okay. And what the user will do, it will like make a HTTP request on our API endpoint, okay. So this user would be some sort of a code, can be some sort of a code which will be making this API request. So one thing is like to stop, like to prevent the abuse of API calls, we must have to identify the user who is that particular user, and we can, in like in near future, if we want to charge, if we are we are looking to charge that particular user, so we have to like track the users of that particular user. So we need to identify the user. So making any call, we need a user, and that user we will be take from the token, right? So for that, user will have some sort of attribute. So to get that token or API key, like the token or API key which he can pass to identify himself, and he must first need to like sign up. So to sign up, we will be getting the email, the name, and the password, and the maybe mobile number, right? So this is the basic info that we will be asking for from the user, and on the basis of that, once it is verified, we can check like the user is verified or not. So we can generate the API key, and that key will work as the ID for that particular user. So any call will happen that goes with the user. So we have one entity which is called user. Then another, the core thing that we are doing, we are sending SMSs. So we will have some SMS. It will have some unique ID. That is not the major concern. The one thing is will be the target, the receiver of that particular SMS. So recipient, or we can say receiver mobile number. Receiver mobile number is the one attribute to whom he is sending. Second is like the SMS body, the date time we will have to attach a status with that, like whether it is in queue or it is sent or it is failed, all that is statuses. Right. So that is all. And one more thing, like which user has create, like make the request to send this particular user, so this SMS, so we can have user ID to make the relation between these two, right? Similarly, the SMS object is created, so like to send a SMS we will need Android device where our application is installed, so we will need to link the device with a particular user. So we will have some device entity in our system which will have, we can say, the user ID, so for which user this device is linked for, and we can say the mobile number, or we can have some basic info like IEMI number, whatever the number that is, unique number, unique ID of device, right? And are we using sim 1 or sim 2, like nowadays devices have multiple sims, right? So this, and so now we have devices, so one user will like go to our panel or and sign up and verify its mobile number or the email address. After that he will get API key, so and then he will like download his particular mobile this Android app, and then this Android app will uh, he will install that Android app and log in to that particular device. So it will again call to our like API endpoint and check if the user is valid, and if it is valid and it is the first time he is logging to, so he will link that particular, the that API will link that particular device to the user, so that will happen there. And after that the device will be in standby, and any request by this particular user for sending an SMS comes in, it will go to that particular device, right? So that's all the feature is here. So let's try to create database for that, and we will try to like implement these fields, and whenever we will need any extra field we'll try to do that also, right? So go to the Visual Studio. Here we have SQL Server Object Explorer. So I am using the local DB. So let me create a database here, create a new database, my SMS gateway DB. Okay, great. So we got our tables here. Now we got this table. So create a new table, and first of all we are going to create the user table, right? So let me call it user info. It has a ID column, make it like begin, I guess. We will try to make it like auto increment. It is auto increment, right? And we can make this primary. Yeah, it's a primary key. Then what we have discussed here, we discussed email, name, password, right? So we can store email where cares like 250, I guess, 256. Then we can have password salt. So this will be the salt that we are storing here. We can put as text. Then we can have the name of user where care 50 is enough, I guess. Okay. Then email. we got email, password, name, mobile number verified. Mobile number I'm going to store at varcat 12, and then we will have, so email is required, password is required, name is required, and then we have email id, password, and yes, verification status is email verified, right? It would be a bit, and we can have some common field like created at what date it is created, right? And then like in general, if there is a user can reset its password, right? So we can have uh, password reset token. It could have like we put is a unique identifier and password reset token expiry. This will be the expiry for that particular token. So whenever we are trying to reset a password, we will generate a token, send it to its mail, and once the user like click on the link, he will be redirected to our page, and where this token is validated, and if it is within the expiry, so that is valid token, and we will prompt him with a new password screen. And similarly, we can have a verification token, like verification token. So we can have this and verification token and expiry. So this will be the expiry for that particular token. So I guess this is the good enough to start with. So our user is created. So we will have a new table with user info, right? So we got our user table mm, here. So we have user table, right? Next we have to create the SMS, right? So I'm going to create this table with like do it just SMS. So table name I am going to call it SMS info. We will have ID. I'm going to change it to unique identifier because we are going to get lots of like the IDs, like lots of messages. So this is unique identifier. Then receiver mobile number. We can do that. I guess the spelling is correct or not. Maybe we can fix it later. And here we are getting like we must have to take 10 character as the mobile number, 10 digit, 1 2 digit for that the ISD code. So 12 will be good enough. So I'm going to mark it as numeric 12 comma 0. So we will always get 12 numbers, and if there is fractional value we will ignore it, right? And here SMS body, it is going to a text, varchar text. So let me put here text, and then we have the date time status and so we get the created at, and we can have updated at, and we can have the status. Status could be like status, let me make it as a varchar 50 characters. So I will put some enum in our code and we will directly do the, like, put the enum string here in the status. Then we have user id. Yes, user id, which is begin, right? So let me arrange this a little bit. So here we go, this, and any foreign key we will try to put after the primary key. So do it this way. Okay, we are all set. So we have ID, unique ID for this SMS, user ID, receiver mobile number, SMS body, status updated, created, right? Okay, and can we put some sort of the device, like one user can have multiple devices, right? So this SMS is sent through which device, we can track it. So let me add another like field here, like device ID, or we can put after the we create the device table. So generate it. Cool. So we got another table SMS info right here. Let's create the third one, that device info. So this table is device info. Simple. And make it unique identifier. What are the attribute for this device? First, user ID, for which user this is, or we can directly put here user ID, and begin, it is going to foreign key. So we have user ID, mobile number, unique ID, SMS symbol. Okay, so we can give some title to this device. Well, Cat50 is good enough. And then mobile number, which SIM we are using, SIM number 1 or 2, we will get care 1. Okay, and what is the mobile number? We can do where numeric 12, 0. Okay, and okay, unique unique ID, that could be varchar50, right? So and device detail. So we can put some sort of JSON, whatever the detail we want here. So for this particular user, and when it is created at date time, and status, whether it is linked or not. Okay, is default, we can mark as a default. So if it is default, every call going with this particular thing, right? Else we can send with this specific device also. So we got this. Anything else, like on device level, anything else we need it? So for now, let's just put it that only. Okay, so update databases. So we got 3 tables here. Okay, so we have these 3 tables. Do we have option to create database diagram here? No, I guess no. So let me fire up the SSMS. So basically, I just want to create the ERD. So in SSMS, we can create a ERD very beautifully. So I will just create that in the SSMS, and from there we will start coding our endpoints. It's taking time. It's taking time. we are connected to local DB. Then we have our database. This okay, great. We will create some database diagram. Device info, SMS info, and user info. We got these three tables, right? So this user ID is foreign key with this particular ID. So we can create foreign key. Primary key column user info, foreign key column user ID, right? So we got the relation between this device and ERD, my SMS gateway. Perfect. Save. Now then we have this user ID. We can put that also here. User info, SMS info, user ID. Perfect. Arrange tables. So we got some sort of view here. Okay. We have device info, we have user info in the center, we have SMS info. We can see here, right? So we got relationship here. So this is a very simple structure for our like database. We have like implemented the this relationship also. So just save it. So we can like create the screenshot for this. Okay, we can save it. Good. On the docs folder, we can write put it as CRD. We will. Yeah. So we got our database set up. We have tables now. Next what? So basically we go with implementing our endpoints, or we can follow our user story. So what is user story here? A user will come up and he will like make a API call. So first there should be a user. So we will need to create a user. And how we can create a user? We will expose an endpoint to create a user or sign up, right? So in our controllers, we are going to deal with user. So we are going to create a user. And here we will expose an endpoint and call it as register. So I just copy it. I am naming it as register. And I will need some sort of like entity endpoint to like get the user detail from the like request body. So I'm going to create a simple class and I'm going to call it register VM, and this will be a public class. It will have simple properties like public string email. Name will be there, okay, and we will have, oh sorry, we will have some email, and then we will have password. We will ask for the password, and from here what else we had discussed about the user: email, name, password, mobile number, and verified. So just start with this very simple steps, and we can have mobile number. So like I am like looking to create a profile API where he can like update other information. So for sign up we are making it as simple, like it will have name, email, and password. That's simple. And one more thing, I want to check on the user if it is a null field or not. Okay. Table view, allow null. So oh wait a minute, I just have to check which column has this custom view. Okay. So email we need it, name and password we need it. Another is nice, cool. So we basically need email, password, and name, which are the required fields. So we got this VM. So on our controller in user info, we will be taking this particular model from the body. So let me check if the endpoint is working properly or not. So run it. Mhm, mhm. Okay, we got our user endpoint. We have API user register, and if we try it out, it is asking for username. Let me try is uh good user mail at mail.in and then something password. This is my password. My password. Okay, and let me put a breakpoint. Yeah, we have a breakpoint here already, and hit it, execute it. So we got our model filled with those details. Mail at mail, go, good user. Great. So we got our user here, right? So now we have to register it. So to do that, basically we make some sort of API call to our user service, like a call to our user service. So let me make a constructor here. So we got our constructor and we want user service as our dependency, or we can call it only service. So this will be our default service. Private, read only, and this. So here we got our dependency injected. So what is dependency injection? So we are not like anywhere we are like trying to access this user service, we can directly asking from the runtime. Whenever user control is getting created, the DI controller will create an instance and put it here. So for that we have to specify the DI container that we have some service called like user service. So here builder dot services dot add transient. Which service? User service. Why we are doing transient? User service. So we do not want to cache any information, so we just want like whenever it is being called we will create a new user, right? Great, so we got it. And this user service is basically depending on user DAO, so we will need to like specify the user DAO also, else it will, the DI will not able to like create the service. So now we are able to do that. So we have user DAO. Perfect. So user DAO don't have any state. I am looking to like add it as a singleton, and if it will break, I will try to change it. So that's all. So we have sorted our dependency tree. So on the user will hit the controller. In the controller, we get the user service. This endpoint is getting hit for the registration. So here we will create a register method on our service. Okay. Go to the service, and here we will just take this particular model, and we can expose public void register, and we have this. I can change the return type. Okay, so register. So doing that, we just validate our DB. So what will the set here? Check if input is valid, right? Then we can check if email is already registered. Then we can check already registered and verified, otherwise we'll send a message. Else create a new entry in the DB. Okay, great. So these three steps need to be like implemented here. So first I will check like the if our user is valid or not. So for that, that this register model is valid or not. So first of all, I want to like uh, put some data annotation here. So we can put a required attribute. So name is required, email is required, and password is required. and the email should be something like email address. It should be a perfect email address, else this will fail. Password, we can put some set of rules here. Min length, we can ask for the min length, and we can say like it should have at least 8 characters. And name, we can like put min length is like at least we will needing some sort of like 5 character or 3 characters, and the max should not go to, max should be something like hmm, I guess we have put there like 50, so we can ask for like 50, or we can ask for like 30, 35, or like 45. Max length is 45. So all those fields are required, and we have some sort of validation. This should be an email address and all that. And we have some password. Okay. And so let's do some sort of validation. So basically I have used data annotation attributes here. So I will try to like show you how you can like Google search about the things that you are trying to implement. So basically I am here focusing to create some sort of a unique pattern, like a common method which can validate the model on the basis of annotations. It is already done like on the, like I guess on the model layer if we are doing the model validation, but we are like looking to implement it whenever we need it. Like we can call some sort of code and it will validate our model. So let's Google search about it. How to validate data annotation from code C sharp. So there is lot of thing available we can go with. Let's look at the Microsoft documentation. So they are saying you get this. They are asking about the like MBC regular expression is this. So we are not interested in MBC. Like we want to happen it only like in, yeah, this thing we are looking at, validate or try validate object. Okay, so this is what we are trying to get it validate, and where we are getting this validator. Okay, so to do, okay, so I guess this is from the component model itself. So let me try it somewhere here. Let me try here only, or we can put this logic somewhere. Let me try it here only first. Okay, so here we have this results. We can pass the object. This is the instance. We have validation context. We can create this, and validation errors and validation result. Okay, results we can talk it, and new list of validation result. This is the parameter we got. So the object which are validating, we have context, the result validate all properties. Yeah, so it is validating all properties, and if it is true, object is validated, otherwise false. So we can check if this is valid, and we can check it, right? So great, let's try this only. So we have a method on the service layer, and on the controller we will try to call this service.register model. We got a good suggestion here. So we will call the service.register and pass the model. It will come to our service layer, and here we will do some first check the input. check if input is valid. So that is the check, and we are doing here. And if it is correct, we can check something like name is equal to model dot name. Check it. So run it. And we got here, we got register. And let me change the, yeah, let me send this particular request only, and I'm going to change the this execute. We got some error that the email field is not valid. So basically we are already getting like validated on this model label, right? So we generally model validation happens on the like this controller level. So any action is getting called, that is basically happening here only. So you can do that from here, and also you can do on the with your custom code. So if I do that, and here we can check, we got results count 0, there is no error, right? Since it is success. So this is a way like we can validate our model manually or not. So that is already happening on the like ASP.NET Core level, so we do not have to worry about that. We just have to put some data validation on the our B model, and that will happen like in the framework itself. So using the ASP.NET framework, we got rid of this particular code which is already happening on the control level, so we are good. Let me put this method here for future reference. Public bool validate model, and here we will have some set of this. Okay, and or I will just comment it here, and done. So for future reference, I can like look here, I already have a method which we have like Google search, so we will not need to like search it is. Okay, model we will need to mark it as a static because we are in a static class. Cool. So that's all. So validation is already happened, so we will have to check if the email is already registered and verified. So for that we will need to like check for the database. So here we are like going to create some DAO methods. So first we will need to find a user with that particular email. In the user DAO, we will going to create public void get by id, get by email id. So we will get a user with the supplied email id, and since we have created our object like database tables, so whenever we are fetching it from the database, we have to store in some sort of object, and for that we will need to create our entity object, which is similar to the your database table. So whatever the column is there, that will be the properties in this particular entity class. So I'm going to create, so what we have, the user info, right? So we have user info. So I am just giving you a simple trick like how you can create a like model like entity class very fast. So when you click here, you will get all this, right? Just copy it. So the user info is the table name, so it is going to our class name. So just give it user info. Cool. Make it public, and you just have to copy all these fields and just put in a comment, and we can copy it from here. So we have id, public long id, since the begin is equivalent to long in our, like, in the C sharp. Then we have email is string, it's going to be a string. Then we have some password salt, so password salt. And we have name, mobile number, sorry, we have name. Then we have mobile number. Then is email verified? This should be a boolean because it is a bit field, right? Then we have created at, it is going to be a date time column. And then we have password reset token, it is going to be unique identifier or grid in our C sharp. And then we have this token verification token. And then we will have this expiries, password reset token expiry, which is date time. And again we have this verification token expiry. So all those columns are mapped here, right? Now we can clean it here. Okay, nice. So here we are doing by very simple steps, and going forward I will like explain how, once we are like done with all the tables, I will explain how we can create a generic repository so that the common code is resolved. Like the DAO code will be very neat and clean. You do not have to write the query everywhere, right? So for now we got this, our user info model, right? So this is the class which will represent the user info table. So we are getting in user dog we are calling get by email id, so we will pass email id and we will get a user info object. So right here I have to make a db call. So what will the sql query here? Cool. So let's do the sql query thing here. New query, we have user info table. So we are going to do select asterisk from user info. So we will get this particular records. So we do not have any records, so it is getting empty. And if you want to do a filter on where email is equals to a email id, so we can pass the email as our parameter. So this is the sql which will use for making this particular db call. And to to do the db call, we already have created the db connections on the command DAO. If you will check, we have get db connection method. It will call this method and will create a new connection every time when we are hitting it, right? So here we can like make a using a scope, and we will call as db and get db connection, which is coming from our base class command DAO. So we got our db connection here, and we can use dapper here. So we are using dapper for like our mapping and db calls. So I guess we have dapper here. No. So let me check if we had implemented a dapper or not. Okay, great. So we will need so dapper is a micro rm basically. So it basically gives us the method to make execute queries and like parse the object and make a proper strongly typed like class object. So that's why we are using dapper. It is very lightweight and it is much faster, right? So I'm going to search for Dapper in the NuGet, and here this one is the latest one. We can install it. Okay. What we got some error here. Okay, let build it first. There is some errors. Okay, cool. So earlier, like the util project were not built. So we got Dapper here. So we can just do using Dapper, and we will got lots of like extension method on the IDB connection dot. You can get query, execute, all those things. Okay, so we can like do dot query, and we want the object in form of user info. So this will execute this particular query, and it will return the list. Okay, so but we are interested in the single record, so we can do first and default, and we just return it from here. Simple. Now it's redundant, right? So email ID will pass, but the object which is here passed is the list of like parameter which is used in the SQL query. So here the parameter is email, so we just have to like supply like this, email equals to this, or we can change that to email ID. So better we can do it like this, right? So that's all. That is simple. Now you are getting a record by the email ID. So first we will check in our service. We were there in the service layer, user DAO and user service. Check if email is already registered and verified. So first we will try to get user info DAO dot okay dot get by email ID, and we can check model dot email. And if there is a user, if user info is not equal to null, then we have some cases. We got a registered user, and again we will check if user info dot is email verified. So if user info is not an email is not verified, we can return a message. Throw exception, please verify your email. Okay. Okay, and then if that is not, we can throw the exception here like user is already registered with this ID, this email, right? And if everything is passed and we got to this particular code, we are good to create our new user, right? So for that we will need to create our insert in our user table. So for that I am just trying to create a insert statement here. So suitable as insert to clipboard. So we get insert statement for this particular table, right? So it's looking a little weird. So let first make it in a single line, right? So we can, okay, not a problem. Control check. Okay, get. So we will get our email, password, name, mobile number. So here like basically we just make our SQL statement. I just wanted not like do any kind of typo, so just I have generated here. And one thing like uh, we can remove this square brackets, so that is removed. and that is removed. Great. And for this starting, we can use at the rate to make our parameters. Great. So we got this, we got this. So we have this SQL statement prepared here, and similarly for our like parameters we can do that. So there is one another simple option is there, like you can do that, and you can put this, you can just put at the rate on the this. So we have our parameter binding is also done here. Okay, and this is done. Great. So just format is little a bit like do this, and for after this we can do that. Great. So we have our SQL insert statement here. So in our DAO layer we can go and like we can public bool create, or we can say insert new user info, and we can just get the user info as an object, and we will have some sort of query similar. So we got our insert statement here, so just put that insert statement here. We can do it from here. Okay, we are getting slash and slash r. So there is one another thing, like if you are pasting here you getting slash and slash r, instead of that you can put this, and now that is working great, right? So we can have this. Sorry for. Okay, so we got our insert statement, and to do inserts we just do execute, and we pass the, we will not pass any type, just execute. We will get our SQL, and we will pass our objects. So any object matching, any property matching to these parameters will match to our this. And if it is greater than 0, we got a successful insert, right? So we get this. So user info we got on the service. We are going to create a new object, user info, is equals to new entity dot user info, or we can just import it. So what are the required for user info dot name is required, we can get is from the model. User info dot email is required, we can get it from the model. Okay, and user info dot password salt is important, and we can create it with the help of sum of utility method. And then we have user info dot email created it, we can put it here, date time dot utc now, and user info dot created ad is happening, updated ad no, another column we can check here. So we got email salt, name, mobile number is not there, created at all good, email is verified, by default it is false. So email is verified, is email verified is false. So this is the actual content that we have so far. So we can now call this our DAO layer. So we have DAO dot insert new user info, and we can pass this where success, right? And if it is successful, we can return the user, or we can just send return this boolean flag success or false, and we can just return from here. Sorry, we can return. So this particular user is saved, and now it is registered. So now you can type. So for that, so here we have one like goal, like we have to create a password salt. So for that, I can show you some methods. So like you cannot store your password directly in the database. In MS SQL, there is concept of there is a methods like function select pwd encrypt. So here, if you trying to give a string, okay, this will create this, right? And if you are doing some, and if you will get this data and do pwd compare with this param1 and param2, this is password. So you will like, then you will check like if it is true or not. Okay, so execute it. So it is not matching because we are getting some binary sort, which is binary here, which is not complete. Okay. Oh, pwd compare, if it is returning 0, I guess then it is a true. What is pwd compare? Clear text password, password hash. Okay, returns one, clear text matches. So the first part password should be your, the first text should be your clear text. So let's do this and pass here. So I guess still we are not getting that. Maybe I am not able to like copy those things. Type with the function itself. Yeah, so now we get pwd compare. So we can do the pwd compare. So one option is like we can set our password in this manner, or we can write our own password strategy. So for that, like let me explain a trick. So mm, mm. So here I once I have created a password helper, this file. Let me copy it first, then we will discuss how it is working. So here we have password helper. So I will just put it in here in our utility. So this is password helper. It is going to be a public static method class. Then here we can get all these methods and do some sort of encryptions. Okay, so see what we are trying to do here. So okay, import the great, and what else? IRV. Let me check what we had done. Like, did we create it? Okay. So we will need to add some NuGet package like encryption. Encryption. So what was the yeah, system.security.cryptographic. This is the package that I will need. So we can use this. I guess this will work, or we have something else native, or let me try with this primitives, and it is dependent on it is, and if I do the algorithm, it is dependent on cryptography. Yes, we have all those things types. Yeah, so we can do the encryption here. So we will have this package installed, and I guess this will work. Okay, great. Accept. Cool. So here we can try to like resolve it from somewhere. No, okay. Still we do not have that. Let me try with this. Comment it first. Anywhere else we are doing? No. Return null and try to build this solution. I have installed it on this util layer already, right? Cryptography. Okay, open it. Great. And we will try to. No. Why we do not have this? So let me search it first. Okay, this .NET 6. It is okay. Where it is? .NET 6. Where it is? .NET 6 we are looking for, right? .NET 6. It is obsolete. Okay. Create the, okay, so we can use this. Let's try first. Okay, we have this dot create. This is the subject. Okay, so I guess we do not need this package also, so let's remove it first. Remove. So we can have compute the hash dot create. We have methods here, subject. What we will get? SHA1. Okay, so we can directly call this, and voila, everything is fine now. So like the earlier code that I have copied is for like .NET framework, so I guess that is the issue, and in the .NET 6 they have removed that managed one. So here let me explain about this code. So we will need to secure a password which will be generated. So it will take a plain password, then a salt, then pref postfix or prefix, and return only. So all those methods are there. So basically what will this do is like it will take your password, it will prepend or append a unique salt or the supplied by you, and then it will like encrypt it so that it get a good hash. So basically let me change one thing here. I got something like in user info, we want to name, we should not name it as a password salt. uh, it should be password hash. So we are not storing salt, basically we are using the hash only. So save it. So I will show you how this method is working when we will like debug the code, and also here user info we can change it to password hash. the benefit of using this password has like in near future, if we want to move from MS SQL to MySQL, we do not have to depend on a, like the DB provided like any of the functions, right? In generally, if you are creating a object oriented design, so you any project around object oriented. Okay, I guess we have some user here. Let me. Okay, so Tekes Visin is here. He is asking for the agenda. Okay, so like we already started on the 10th, so like maybe you have lost. It's almost to the end. So basically, we are like discussing end-to-end project development using live coding. So this is the second series of that particular course, and here we are just like in previous video we had discussed the architecture, that what we are doing planning to like implement. So this is the architecture. So we are trying to create a SMS gateway, and it is a very simple SMS gateway. We will be using Android app to send SMSs. So here basically whenever a user hits a API endpoint, so we are creating a API gateway, so we will be exposing it as a REST API. User will say make a API call with the body with mobile number SMS. It is received on the API .NET Core endpoint, and to make it parallelly scalable, we are using some sort of like like broker, message broker. So we will just put that particular request in a rabbit MQ and just return 200 to like the your request has been accepted, and from there would be background worker. They will fetch that particular request, they will process it, and they will send it to the FCM, Firebase Cloud Messaging, and from there a push notification is sent to the mobile device where this app will be installed, and from there this app will use the native telephony API and it will send the SMS. So that's all the architecture that we are discussing here. And then so far we have created some sort of methods and the project structure setup that we have discussed. So here we have some API project, then four different class library project to support this. So we are like separating all the codes in different DLLs. We can put in the folders also. And here like we have API, DAO layer, entity layer, service layer, and util layer. So like currently I'm discussing the user sign up. So whenever a user is getting registered to our system, he will like hit the user controllers register method. From here we will be calling our service. Here we are validating the if user is already registered or not, and once that is uh, that validation has been done, we will be like creating this default user object and persisting it to database. So the current discussion the current discussion that we are doing is like why we are not using these methods. So like in the MS SQL we have some methods for database for password encryption, right? Like we have uh, pwd encrypt. So we can pass plain text here and it will generate some sort of binary hash, and then this whenever somebody is coming to like check if password is matching, so we can do pwd compare, and we can pass the plain text and then the encrypted one which is in the DB. So if that is matching, we will get this record. So this is how we are not storing the user's plain password in our database. So in the benefit of that is like if the DB admin is also not able to see the password, right? So that is the benefit of this. But one of flaw with this approach is like it is more dependent on the MS SQL. And whenever we are designing our application around the OOPS principle, object using object oriented design and drive solid principles, most of the logic should be dependent on your the code, not on the database. Basically, we treat database as our persistent medium only. So by the PCI specification, we never show password to anybody. If somebody is want to reset his password, they can create a new password, but we will never expose the password using any API endpoint or in the database itself. So that is the PCI recommendation. Whenever you are going for PCI certification for your application, if there is a situation where anybody can see the password, then they will not pass it. So the standard practices, you will never know the what was the password. That is only known to the user, right? So they can reset their password. So in a big application, you have seen like no like in the Amazon or the Flipkart, if you are forgetting a password, they will not send you the password, they will just reset the new password by verifying whether you are the legit user or not, right? So that's why we are not implementing these kind of features. Like if we need to show the plain password, we can send, like we can give the user option to reset the password. For that, basically we will like generate a link and send it to the user's email. When user will click the user's that link, there would be some sort of token which is validated on the application endpoint, and that is validated. So basically the user is using the same email ID. So I guess the system will understand like the same user is like requesting the reset, so we can like represent a new password screen. From there they can set a new password, right? I think. Okay, so for that, like yeah, that is also the requirement, which is not we are covering in this particular project. But there is requirement like the current password should not be uh, in like 5 to 6 password, right? So we can store the hash, we can store the hash for last 5 password, right? And we can do the like pwd compare for all 5, and from there we can check if it is matching to any older one, then we can like restrict them. Low, your password is, you cannot use the password from the last 5 or 3 passwords, right? And yeah, we must have to do the network call. That is the requirement. You cannot put the password things on the like front end, right? If you are not want to make a network call, then how like, so there the network call from the browser or from the API to DB. If you are asking for the call from API to DB, there could be some situations like you can like get the user object and put cache it for some region. Like mostly what happens whenever you somebody logs in and a session is created, generally in memory object of that particular object, user object is stored either in the memory cache or in the dotted memory itself, and from there you can validate the last passwords. So that's why that's how you can like skip the network call to database. Otherwise from the front end, you never never want to put anything. No, on UI you never put the password on the UI. Yes, any logic respected to UI you never put on the UI. That's a simple, because any like anyhow the UI code which is available on the browser, it is available to client. You can like basically we encrypt it or basically the code is minified, but somebody can read it, right? I guess that's answer your question. Cool. So here we were like discussing this approach, why we should not use the database provided functions. Because if we are doing like, as I told, like as per the design, the object oriented principles, we should treat database just as the repository for our persistent object. So if we change the backend provider, our this pwt encrypt or pdb compare will not work. So for that we are just putting our whole logic in our code, and how that will work. So that I was explaining. So here I have a util method which is password helper. So what we are doing is like, let's suppose we have a password abc. So we will append some random text, let's suppose random salt, basically anything we can, like we can do a grid here, so we can get a randomized code, and then we will randomly on the basis of prefix or suffix we can append or pre or suffix. So the final string that is going to be is like this: your password. If it is a prefix, then 0, or suffix for 1, and for this I am using suffix. So for that, your password, then your salt. This is got, and we will encrypt it with our provider method on the CISA. We get some sort of salt here, which is stored in the DB. It is going in the DB. And when we have to like check the password, yes. So what we will do, the DB value will be this. Yes, that is the important thing that I have to explain is like, so we got an encrypted string. So the first character will be your encrypted string. Then we will choose some sort of separator. For this, I am using this colon, this. So you will create a string with this and this, and whether it is, then you will put your salt, and then you put this prefix. Is it is prefix or suffix? So whenever you have to validate your code, this password, you have the plain password, right? So you will get your plain password, you will split all these, and on the basis of prefix or suffix you will get your salt, and whether you will prefix or suffix, and then you will encrypt and check the encrypted value with this encrypted hash. If that is matching, then your password is correct. So that is what I have implemented here. So on the basis of prefix suffix, we are creating some sort of salt using grid, and then we are using computing our hash, and we are getting the uh, so if we are only looking for hash, we are returning it, else we are getting the password that I discussed. You will have hash, you will have salt, hash separator, then salt, hash separator, prefix or suffix, the final value. So here let me call it password helper dot secure password model dot password. This line is a code smell. Understand why? Earlier I was telling like we should follow the oops and all that, but here we have hard coded dependency on password helper class, right? So this password helper class dependency should be inverted back to the caller. So that's why this password helper class that we have implemented here should be a sort of singleton class. So we need to remove this static so that we can create our singleton. So this is how we will like refactor our code. So here we do not have any static, and we can register our this password helper as singleton here. So whenever you are doing hardcore dependency on anything, we will have to like refactor that particular code. So now this code, this class is no more static, so we cannot call this way. So we can take it from the constructor as a dependency, and from there we can use that. So here we can call this method now. Now our code is more secure, like more robust. So this is how we will like store our users password. And if that is happening, yeah, so let's run the first happy case. So if I am running our code here, and okay, so this register method, and if I'm trying with this simple set of data, we are good. Okay, we got some. Okay, we are not able to connect to host. Okay, I guess my DB. Sometimes there is problem with local uh, DB. Like sometimes due to of less memory in my system, it is got. Let me try once again now, and let me close this SSMS. We got try it and then execute it. Okay, still it's not able to connect. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there is a problem with MySQL host. So yeah, that is not the problem. Actually, I had a bug in my code. So I was telling you like how we can change the MySQL or SQL connection string. So in our app config, we have to specify the connection string properly. We haven't specified any connection string, and earlier I was told like I told like we will be implementing it MySQL, so that I put it in the MySQL connection here. But for this we are going to use MS SQL only. In future we can change it. So let me install the SQL connections. Okay, so let me change the connection string very fast. Mm, we will have MS SQL. Okay, this is our database server. How we can get the connection string from here? Okay, do we have connection string option anywhere? Yeah, we have connection string here, so we can put the connection here. We do not need all fancy thing here. Okay, we can put initial catalog, and that is to our database. What was the name? This. Okay, not try with this. And here we already fix our deviation. So you can see like earlier this code was for MySQL, now it is for MS SQL. So this is the single method that need to be changed just for. Okay, I will explain. Just let me test this particular scenario, then I will explain the singleton thing. Okay, we are trying it. I guess. Okay, keyword is initial catalog is not supported. Mhm. Let me copy. MS SQL connection string. Caesar. I guess I must have misspelled the mm, user ID, database, password, trusted connection, user ID, database, initial catalog. There is a space between these two. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, now it will work. try it. We got our TV connection. Success. Okay, I guess I need one more fix here, since I have represented a column which is password solved and that we have changed. So I will need to change that first, else it will like break the system. I have changed the column name this password sort to password hash, so that will need to change first. Otherwise, this SQL will fail. Cool. Now it is good. Okay, so this. Now, if we go here, we have a password generated for this. So if we will check that I was discussing about the password, we have generated the password in this particular format. This is your salt, this is your the hash, and this is representing whether we have to like prefix or suffix the salt. So this will insert in our database if everything is okay. Okay, we got some error. We got date time error. SQL date time overflow. Yes, because we need to put some constraint there. Okay, so in user info, I guess we should. Okay, we have some date field here, expiry and password and verification expiry. We can just change those to nullable. So that's why, right? Now this will work, and we have created it, which is we are supplying from here. Okay, from this user, let's try it. Okay, so from here we are going to insert, so it's a successful insert and we will get a 200 response. Okay, so we got our 200 response here, and if we will check our database, view the data, we got our one instance here, right? So that was the simple registration of user. For this particular session we will be concluding here only. Just I have to answer one of the chat. So yeah, so here the case is asked like uh, yeah, so why we have created singleton and what is the problem with the static. Okay, that's a perfect solution, like ask here. Yeah, so the if we are talking about the solid, and we will consider the last principle dependency inversion, that says the all the dependencies should be inverted back to the caller. So who is calling the method should supply the that particular instance. So if we are using a static class, and here like in our code base, if you see like we were in the user service. Okay, here, so since we are doing a static method here, a static class, so it is hard coupled to this method, right? Now we have inverted back this to this. So the one thing that we have achieved is we have done the dependency inversion. That is not possible with the static. Another thing is, sorry, yeah. So another thing is like the object creation for static happened by the runtime, right? Which is not controlled by us. So one thing that's why also we do not want to create static members. We like by default the static is not the like It is not the oops. Oops never talk about the statics. We the runtime or the class, the programming language provide us static to implement some features. So we should not use static as our like standard objects. In this particular solution, I have just removed this static to a singleton because I wanted it to dependency inverted. So it is a normal class. We haven't marked it as a singleton by the definition, but we are using .NET uh, Core DI container. From there, I have just implemented as a registered as a singleton. So for this particular case, only a single instance will be returned. So I haven't created from here. This class is standard class, standard C sharp class. There is nothing written about the we can create single or multiple instance. That is all happening with the help of your DI container. So since I have registered it as a singleton, it is singleton. That's all. Hope that's answer the question. Or in some cases you can like define your the logic of creating a singleton. So we can mark this as a private constructor. We can do that. We can like, okay, we can mark this. So now DI container also cannot resolve it. So we will have to specify our own way to like create an instance, and from there we can do that. For the simplicity of this, we can do that. So there is lots of way we can create a singleton. We have some suggestion from the Microsoft that we can follow. Like there is a Microsoft implementation, MSDN. Okay, yeah, singleton. Okay, I haven't typed properly. So here in Microsoft discussion, you can see like they are more on the singleton. I guess this one is the perfect answer. Okay, they have discussed about that. Mm, mm, this is the normal discussion. Yeah, there is a lot of way to like implement it. Like they are doing this lock object. If you are checking, if double check if you are checking it's null or not. So sometimes in interview people talk like when you are implementing a singleton pattern, how you will implement the double check pattern. So this is implementing the double check pattern. So you are checking if the instance is null or not, okay, and you are trying to take the lock. Let's suppose somebody has already taken the lock. So you will be waiting for that time, right? And once he return that log, you will come in this section, and if you will not check whether the instance is null or not, you will be like creating a new instance. So that's why we will have to check the null inside the log block also. This is called the double check. There is also a concept of lazy. Yes, in .NET 4 you can use this lazy initialization of that. So this will ensure you will get only a single instance. Simple. In .NET 4, it is very simple. So you can just declare a private static read-only member, and you can initialize it. If you people want, I can share these in the chat. So how I can put that in the chat? I will have to so I guess here I can put that in the chat. You can read more about this singleton. Cool. So like so far we have implemented, what we say, we have implemented the user sign up, and next we will like on the next Sunday we will discuss like the login thing, and going forward we will discuss then how we can parallelly we will start the developing our Android application. So that's all for the today's video. And if you people not like able to like come on the time due to of the timing, you can suggest me the proper timing for at what time I should start, so that like more people can join. So you can just put those timing in the chat, so like I can like reschedule our this live session for that timing. Okay. So thanks all for coming in and like entertaining it. And I will be it will be more appreciating if you will put some comments like what should I improve and what are the other thing that should I cover in the deep. So thanks for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.